if you don't like cuss words, don't listen. Welcome to the James Chambers Show. I'm your host for this podcast, James Chambers. Recently, someone asked me what I thought about President Trump's benefit to the economy. She assumed that by connecting the president to a buoyant stock market, I would have to admit that Trump is great and that I've been wrong all this time about his ability to single-handedly save the country from some impending liberal disaster. Surely I, the liberal's liberal, would recognize that 45 has done great things for our economy and thus the dear leader deserves great praise. Well, as you can imagine, she wasn't thrilled with my reply. But it did get me thinking about how people perceive the economy, not the actual, real, tangible economy, the one that generates your paycheck, but rather the speculative, fickle, fake economy that the 1% benefit from. This fake economy is the one that Fox Business and Fortune pundits use to prove that everything is great. Tax cuts and deregulation is the way to go every time. Don't worry, there's nothing to see here. We've got this covered. While the ultra-wealthy funnel billions of dollars away from us, the workers, into their bloated portfolios. People like this person I spoke with look to the shiny stock market and they ooh and ah about record numbers and stock footage of intense trading on the exchange floor, and they totally miss the point. One of the most misunderstood parts of the real economy, our economy, is the hourly wage. We have been indoctrinated from birth, especially if you're my age and grew up in the 80s and 90s, that the only way for a company to succeed is to keep taxes low, keep those pesky regulations down, keep the payroll lean and mean and wages as low as possible, and then maybe you'll have a shot at your company being profitable. This model is used in nearly every business around the world. And of course, the downfall of this model is that the workers get screwed every time. It never happens all at once. The slide from a healthy, productive workplace with good wages and benefits and pensions to a workplace that has no perks, no benefits, no pensions, and no discernible wage increase is a slow slide down the razor's edge. You might not even notice all the small cuts at first, but by the end, you have been slashed to the bone. The really sad part is that when you complain, or if you want a raise, some middle manager will condescendingly comfort you saying, "I would love to do that for you. I can ask for you, but I'm pretty sure I know what the answer will be. The budget is just so tight, and really, you should be happy that you still have your hours. I had to fight to keep your full-time hours. I'd hate to have to lose you." So caring, so condescending, and so concerned for your well-being. It's like an abusive husband coddling his beaten wife, saying, "I'm sorry I hit you. You made me so angry, but hey, at least I didn't hit you in the face. I really would hate to have to punch you in the face." Companies are setting all the rules, and they have effectively taken away all of the workers' leverage to prevent their abuses. But hey, you can quit. You can find a different job. Job mobility, I hear you cry. Job mobility is the cornerstone of capitalism, or at least a cornerstone of capitalism, huh? Right. Just like you can leave your abusive husband, except that the only other single people available are abusive too. And I'll only touch on the fact that workers and families don't have enough disposable income to uproot and move to another city or another state for a job. Job mobility is a remembrance of our parents' economy, not ours. Again, companies are making the rules. And once that slide downward starts, it's a race to the bottom for everyone. It's like playing a front-hand backhand. No matter what you choose, you're going to get smacked. Here's a commonly told lie that keeps workers in check. Have you ever heard the old pull yourself up by the bootstraps bit? Pauper to prince, gutter to glamour. If you only work hard enough, smart enough, dig down deep and muster up the courage to go out and succeed, that you will be successful. It's the American dream. No, the American guarantee. So what if you're poor or disabled or some shade of brown? We all have the same opportunities here in America. That's the common line of thinking, right? How many times have you heard that? Well, hell, how many times have you actually said that? I mean, I know I have. And then I, like so many others, got wise to the scam. And just allow me to digress for just a moment here. This next bit is for you millennials. My generation, we're fucked. Since we're late Gen X, little micro Gen Y. You are not. Not yet. You have time to change the course of America's future for yourself and for your generations that are coming after you. And you have a chance to demand real wages and real fairness in the economy. Remember, you are going to be running the show in 20 or 30 years. My generation of progressives is trying to lay the groundwork for you to do better than us. Just, bear with us while we bumblefuck our way through the shit pile we inherited first. Don't lose sight of the goal in the process and ignore the trickle-down clowns that are trying to get in your way. So let me read something from Forbes magazine contributor Mike Patton. Despite efforts to the contrary, America is still the land of opportunity for those who want to roll up their sleeves and work hard to obtain the necessary skills for a higher paying position. A minimum wage job, after all, should never be the end game. Rather, it should be a beginning step in the career path for those inclined to improve their circumstances. Unfortunately, we have a country filled with individuals who are satisfied with a welfare check, but who are fully capable of working and becoming a productive member of society. If government really wants to help our economy, it will focus on getting people off entitlements and back to work. Look, if your stomach didn't do backflips while listening to that steaming pile of horse shit, go back and listen to it again. I'll wait. There's so much to parse. Let me just start by saying this. Mike Patton, I don't know you. You may be a bright guy with reasonable ideas. The larger piece I'm pulling your quote from is not reflective of that, you classist, elitist twat waffle. You assume that everyone's goal in life is to get rich, and the only path to accomplishing that is to get more education so that you can get a higher paying job, I guess because you can't be happy or satisfied in life if you don't have a Bentley, right? Well, there's a whole generation of people called millennials, you may have heard of them, that your stupid vacuous logic is failing as we speak. Not everyone wants to go to college. Not everyone wants to be a CEO. Some people just want to be a house framer or a steel worker or an auto mechanic. And yes, maybe even a janitor or a burger flipper. We need those peoples at the lower skilled rungs of the economy. Can you imagine if there were no janitorial services or linen services in a hospital, for example? And by the way, hospitals tend to call janitorial services what they actually are, environmental services, because they are valuable and their position is deserving of respect. Mike, your logic seems to imply something else. Skill is the only path to a decent wage, and that's a load of crap. Just because someone is a janitor doesn't mean they deserve to be poor or in poverty. Your argument claims that a low-paid security guard has intrinsically less value as a human being than that of an entrepreneur. If he was a better person, he'd try harder, right? It's the poor or lazy fallacy. It certainly allows a person like you, Mike, to treat others with disrespect. I mean, why be a kind and courteous person to your server? They're a lower human than you are, aren't they? Did you know that the average age of fast food workers today is 29 years old? Low-wage jobs are no longer the stepladder for kids they once were. They have become second or third jobs for adults who can't make enough money at their full-time job to pay for childcare or rent or medicine. I can't even begin to touch on this guy's dumbfuck welfare check and entitlement statements, not to mention the underlying racism and classism that undergirds his ideas. I mean, for God's sake, Walmart is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year company, and here's an example of how well they treat their employees. Walmart was caught teaching classes of new employees how to access public assistance. A multi-billion-dollar corporation encouraging their employees to access what some people call welfare because their wages are too low. I mean, some of their stores even set up food banks filled by employees for employees who couldn't afford the basic necessities. How disgusting is that? But don't worry, the Walton family is literally getting billions of dollars in tax breaks from the new tax bill while their employees are setting up food banks for their own co-workers. Paul Ryan and his trickle-down ilk love to decry the evils of socialism, except when corporations socialize their debt to the public. That, my friends, is corporate welfare. We're bailing out the employees of billion-dollar companies because the companies refuse to pay a living wage. Not to mention that when these giant companies, and banks for that matter, do something catastrophically stupid, it's our money, tax money, that bails them out. That is corporate welfare. And that program is okay, but paying workers a basic wage is bad? It'll ruin the economy? How are we going to ruin the economy if we pay workers more? The whole basis of our modern economic structure is corporatocracy, not the relevance or health of the workforce. And no, this little wage hike that Walmart and other companies are offering won't do anything to actually help their workers in the long term. Fun fact, some will argue that Walmart and other multi-billion-dollar companies are giving bonuses and raising wages, and so it's all good now, right? Wrong. Those $1,000 Walmart bonuses only go to about 2% of their workforce. And think it through. What does a one-time bonus actually do for a family? What, one mortgage payment? A car payment? Maybe for 2 months at the most? A student loan payment? Or what, a month of childcare? How does that really benefit the family in a practical long-term way? It doesn't. You can't fix a roof for $1,000. You can't pay off a credit card for $1,000 or repair the car or start an investment for $1,000. These bonuses are just for show. And so are the flaccid wage increases these companies are so proud of. They're simply bribing employees to boost their temporary morale and getting positive press, hoping that these shiny new bonuses is enough to placate the workforce and ride the wave until the next election cycle. In a country with near total employment right now, how many high-skilled jobs are there? How many people are being underutilized because there's just no opportunity for them to work in their chosen field? It's a lot. Well, they should get an education and retrain for a new career, I assume you would say. Well, yeah. And how many people look at the amount of crushing student debt and think, no way. I can't afford to live during school on my wage, and I sure as hell can't afford the loan payments after. And that's assuming that they would have a better job to get after school. Oh, hey, Mike, hi. I didn't forget about you. You live in a conservative neoclassical fantasy land. Your outdated and provably false narrative about the economy and our value in it is exactly the reason that people like me bought into the notion that we would be worthless if we didn't go to college or some higher education. We would never succeed, never do well in life, and the only form of happiness is being able to afford the condo with the Beamer parked in the stall. Remember, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps? Well, it wasn't originally intended to describe something that was possible. I mean, this should be intuitive. It's literally impossible for a person to lift themselves up by their bootstraps, which was the original point of the expression. It sounds good in a politician's stump speech. It feels good when you hear it. Rugged individualism, get out and go get it, cowboy. Well, bootstraps in the modern usage was dreamt up by the very wealthy and their acolytes to keep the poor shamed and to keep the workers working for fewer and fewer benefits and less power to control their circumstances. So, Mike, to you and all those like you, know this. You are the reason that Gen X is screwed. You and your ilk are the reason millennials are on the cusp of being screwed. Your flawed and damaging economic policies have ruined 2 generations and soon to be 3 with unabashed greed, apologetics, and shamelessness. So, for my generation, and to the next, with one voice we say, fuck you, Mike, and the Beamer you rode in on. But I digress. It's easy to do that on this issue. So, wages. With union membership falling, pensions largely a thing of the past, and benefits like paid time off, paid sick leave, and paid family leave being cut, that's assuming you even had them to begin with, the only way to gain some fiscal traction is to earn a decent wage. And let's start with the minimum wage. The U.S. Department of Labor suggests that raising the minimum wage would actually benefit the economy in several ways. For example, it would increase consumer purchasing power and reduce employee turnover. When people in the 99% get wage increases, we spend money. We don't hoard money in stocks and bonds and investment properties and yachts. We buy washing machines and cars and clothes and refrigerators and TVs and vacations and movie tickets and dinners with family, and we buy stuff. We drive the economy. A thriving middle class is the foundation for a strong economy. If there are more people with more disposable income, businesses gain profit. With higher wages, people have more fiscal stability, and that leads to more small businesses and entrepreneurs who hire more people. It's cyclic. The economy is an ecosystem, not a one-to-one ratio of supply and demand, like conservatives and trickle-downers will try to tell you. While our wages have stagnated, rising income inequality has transferred wealth from low and middle income households, our households, people with relatively low savings rates, and transferred wealth to higher income households with higher savings rates. That means that there's less wealth being circulated in the real economy and more wealth being piped into the fake economy. Again, just think that to the next logical step. Why would the last 8 years or so have relatively slow economic growth? It's growing, but not nearly as slow as it could. And it's not that the overall economy was bad. It's that we have less money to buy stuff. Rising income inequality means that consumption by the low and middle class grows more slowly. Here is another lie you will hear about rising wages. Rising wages will destroy small businesses. They won't be able to hire new people and likely cut back hours for current workers. Smells like horseshit. One of the best weapons against rising wages are scare tactics. Businesses make a thinly veiled threat to the worker. Take what we offer or lose your job. Oh, and there's no union to back you up, so it's just you against the machine. For most people, even at higher wages, the threat of a job loss actually translates to lose your home, your car, your food. More lies. Rising wages will destroy the economy, or jobs will disappear, or mechanization will take all the low-paying jobs away if you are forced to pay people more. And these are all repetitions of the same basic lie. History has proven this to be false. Here's a prime example. We can't enact child labor laws. We'll destroy the children of this country by not teaching them the value of labor at 6 years old, I guess. In 1924, a writer at the Manufacturer's Record warned that the passage of a Child Labor Standards Amendment, and this is a quote, would mean the destruction of the boys and girls of the country. Adding a dash of jingoism, he continued, claiming that the policy was aimed to nationalize the children of the land and bring about in this country the exact conditions that prevail in Russia. So by creating child labor standards, we would be nationalizing America's children and become like Russia. Remember, this elitist jackass is talking about kids here, 5, 6, 7-year-olds who are routinely losing fingers and limbs and eyes, and often died in manufacturing plants. Same basic lie, just a different twist. We can't enact child safety standards. We'll destroy the children. We can't ask for higher wages. You'll lose your job and your home and everything you have. Well, here's some truth for you. The federal minimum wage has increased 22 times through 12 presidents, and not once did the economy suffer, stagnate, or otherwise collapse based on the wage increases. But we need to see the minimum wage in the context of purchasing power. Since the program started, the minimum wage has never reached the poverty line for a family of 4. That means that an annual full-time wage at the federal minimum has never brought a family of 4 out of poverty. The minimum wage is a poverty wage, plain and simple. The closest it came was in the mid-60s, when the minimum reached about 99% of the poverty line. And to compare, it's down today to about 60%. The minimum wage, as it stands today, is an ethical failure. We claim to believe in the value of labor, but then allow full-time workers to live in poverty with little escape from the cycle. You know what happened to, well, if you work and you work a full-time job, that you'll be okay. If only you work hard enough, smart enough, dig down deep and muster up the courage to go out and succeed and blah, 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 blah. Economic security like that is a fantasy of generations past. Today, you work hard at a low-paying job, say 40 hours a week, usually more, and that's just to pay for rent, maybe buy food, and then some asshole comes along and tells you that you're not working hard enough. You should be doing better. Sometimes public assistance is the only thing separating these full-time workers from starvation or homelessness, but somehow they're lazy and morally corrupted, and they should pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Well, it's kind of hard to do that when you can't afford fucking boots, numbnuts. I need to pause for just a second here to be fair about the number of jobs I'm talking about. People who are at or below the federal minimum wage represent a very small portion of the workforce. I mean, like 3%. So I'm not contending that if we raise the minimum wage for 3% of the workforce, that somehow the economy is going to explode and it's all going to be roses and cotton candy. Raising the minimum wage drives all wages up. It sets a bar. Across-the-board wages would increase and rebalance the economic ecosystem and break the toxic wage stagnation that we are in today. And so you understand where we are right now. After adjusting for inflation, wages are only 10% higher today than they were in 1973. And just think about that. Your paycheck has the same value now that it would have had in 1973, but with less purchasing power since everything is more expensive today. Is there any wonder why Gen Xers and millennials feel screwed over? So now let's add this to the equation. Nearly 60% of us have less than $1,000 in our bank account. This very well might explain why the average American has over $6,300 in credit card debt. And what about retirement? If you can't save and your family is partially living on credit, and maybe some form of public assistance as well, you sure aren't going to be able to put money into a retirement fund. Only a third of working Americans are actually able to save money in their 401ks. Now, remember back to that person who asked me about the rising stock market and why Trump is good? Well, this is how the fake economy of the stock market doesn't reflect the real economy of the workforce. Look, bottom line, my friends, we are working harder for less. And I mean lots of less. Less wage growth, less stability, less happiness, less access to education, less access to healthcare, less savings, less retirement security, and the list goes on. Is it any wonder that marriage rates are going down among young Americans? Would it surprise you to know that the child birth rate in America is falling? Young people are not seeking higher education as much as they were before, and, with good reason. Millennials see the writing on the wall, and they may not have the tools yet to effect change, but they sure as hell know that change must come, and come soon. We must help them. Boomers and Gen X need to get their collective shit together and make sure that there is something of a pathway to the future for these people. It's going to be harder now than it ever has been before. Republicans just mortgaged millennials' future to the tune of $1.5 trillion in debt. They stole money from the future to pay Walmart and AT&T and Comcast and the Koch brothers and the Waltons and the Trump family, but they refused to help the people who actually need the help, us, the workers. It's time to fight back. All of us together. If we stand up and we make our voices heard, we write letters, we write emails, we make a call, we vote. If we all do these things, we can secure real economic security and stability for generations to come. We owe millennials and their future children the chance to have a better life than us. And right now, they don't. You can no longer afford to sit on the sidelines. Silence is complicity now. Our time is also now, so that their time will be better. Thank you for listening to the Yeah, Your Wages Are Too Low episode of The James Chambers Show. I would love to hear your comments. Comment on the video in the section down below or email the show, realjcshow2017@gmail.com, or follow the show on Twitter @realjcshow. Also, if you want some help figuring out how to make a difference, contact me. I will happily point you to resources to assist you. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Go get it, cowboy.